Negative self-talk is just so interesting to me, and it showed up a couple of weeks ago just with a client that I've got at the moment. What I find so fascinating is the words that he decided to use, and this is so common as well. I've probably said this at one point, I'm sure you will have said this as well, and people listening, is like I've always struggled with anxiety. I said, okay, it's not always. Does it need to be a struggle? And when I think of anxiety, it's not an object. So when you say with, so when you deconstruct the sentence, how can we frame this in a more helpful way? Perhaps you've developed a poor strategy for when you feel anxious. Straight away, you could see his guard come down and his shoulders dropped. Because he's used this common language because his mother and father use this common language. It's almost just been passed down to him like a dead weight. And I think because it's so accepted within society to communicate to ourselves like this, we just do it. When you ask someone how they are in the UK, typically they go, not bad. So I always go, so good then. But yeah, I just found that just so interesting because it's such a throwaway comment. But if you're carrying around this dead weight of expectation and misery with you everywhere, oh, it's because I'm anxious, oh, it's because I've always been, it implies it can't change and you're limiting yourself instantly. I don't know if you see this with people you talk to as well.
I really relate to it myself. So, as someone with a long history of an anxiety disorder that left me, I left my corporate career because of it. I hid in my house, didn't talk to anyone, and the story I told myself was, I'm too anxious to do anything. These things feel too big. I struggle with this, that, and the other. I'll never stand up in front of a room full of people ever again. And so therefore, it's the stories we tell ourselves, right? It's when I remember being in a boardroom after coming back from maternity leave and seeing all these, senior male middle-aged leaders and feeling completely out of place, the story I told myself was, I am rubbish. I can't do this anymore. And that's why I left. Now, I'm glad I left because I wouldn't have gone on to do all this. But you're so right in that it's really important to pay attention to the language we use in our heads and understand where that comes from. You make a really good point that quite a lot of the time, it's coming from out here. It's coming from our nearest and dearest and the language that they've used, all our lives and what we've been exposed to. It's coming from our society and our culture about kind of having a bit of a moan and a grumble and always thinking about the weather in terms of how we're feeling. And all of this, as well as our internal belief systems, that are built through traits and external, lead into this internal voice that can mean we're communicating with ourselves badly. What's your connection to that yourself?
Through my own experience, my mother's got a very anxious disposition. She would concern herself more about things that haven't happened. And I know they go, well, yeah, that's anxiety 101, but it's to the nth degree. So, for example, literally I love her dearly. She's amazing, but
Yeah.
she just gets herself in a right stress about things sometimes. And even just a couple of weeks ago, I was on a client call at like 10 o'clock on a Tuesday. I had a missed call from her. And I said, right, well, obviously ignore it. I'm on a client call, no problem. If it's anything urgent, she'll ring back. And then she did. And I was like, this is a bit odd. So I left it again. And then she tried again. I was like, I'm so sorry, I need to answer this. So I put the thing on mute. I said, is everything all right? She's like, oh yeah, I'm doing a Sunday roast this Sunday. I'm in M&S now. Are you coming? Because I was like, Mum, I thought someone was dying. Like 3 calls. That could have been a text or just anything. So I didn't know what was going on in that moment. And she just goes into these situations and she'll get herself really frustrated really quickly, for argument's sake. But she also gets a lot of stuff done. And she was very successful from a young age. And so that get up and go, that drive, that hunger, as it were, it's just misplaced occasionally. So she's got the right ingredients. It's just sometimes the recipe's a bit off. And the recipe could be incredible chocolate cake, or it could be this wet, soggy, weird pancake thing, depending on what she does with it. So, and typically I received more love from what I needed from my mum than my dad, purely because he was working away. It's the stereotypical old school thing. Dad was away, mum stayed at home, right? And men don't show emotion, etc., etc. The old narrative of that era. And yeah, that's how it sort of shaped my thinking. So when it was not hearing back from people, if I'd gone to an interview and I hadn't heard back in like a couple of days, I'd be like, oh my God. But then I've also got dyspraxia and I've got ADHD. So I take things quite personally very quickly. And then I've learned how to disassociate and how to regulate my emotions more efficiently. But my instantaneous hardwired response that I don't think is ever going to be different, and that's not a limitation, that's just the way my brain's wired. The instantaneous response is overwhelm, panic, oh my God. How quickly I come out of that can be as short as 30 seconds now, whereas before it'd be 3 days.
Oh, yeah. I can really relate to that. I can really relate to that. My mum's the same. And I remember, if she listens to this, love you, mum. But mum knows, that she worries. And it's that same sort of anxious urgency if you're worried about something. You can't get hold. I was in a conference in London a few years ago, and rather than text, mum was calling and I couldn't speak to her, and she thought something really, really bad had happened, catastrophizing. I really relate to this too in many, many ways. And so, I think there is a certain sort of disposition around this certain personality type. But I think regardless of personality type, and thank you for sharing that, by the way, I know a lot of people will be able to relate to that. Regardless of personality type, we all have the ability to get into bad habits, which are unhealthy and not productive towards ourselves in terms of this internal voice and how we speak to ourselves. So let's have a look at the history behind that. And we've kind of touched on this already in terms of society, culture, upbringing. But in your work that you do, what's the main thing you see around the history behind this, why this happens?
So typically it's that it was put onto them. Sometimes it can be environment. So it's not directed at them per se around, let's say, money. It could be you see how dad interacts with people, or he's talking to mum, or we can't afford that, or money don't grow on trees, so not everything's, you're just sort of getting caught in the crossfire of it. When it comes to low self-esteem, which is ironically a very key component of super high achievers,
Yeah.
I work with CEOs, athletes, and business owners. Typically, people are really operating at a very good level. It's almost driving them to get the big house and get the car in the hope that the validation is going to come eventually. They never felt good enough for a few reasons. Now, Steve Peters talks about this in the chimp paradox. Let's imagine that I get them to get into like a deep meditative state through. So we do meditation practice or we do whatever. It's just closing their eyes, relaxing music. It's not hoo-ha. It's not anything fancy. I just get them to be more associated. If you close your eyes instantaneously, you become more associated. That's why, obviously, people like blind people, for example, their other senses are heightened. It's exactly the same with us. So you can get into the moment more, and then I'll give them prompts. I'm not trying to put information in their head or try to lead them in a way. I'll ask them very specific, very deliberate questions. It's a structure that I've devised, essentially. So if I said to you, what did you have for lunch, 3 weeks ago? No idea. If I said 3 days ago, you probably wouldn't know. So the likelihood of remembering accurately of what happened when you were 6 or 7 is very, very flawed. And this is why this, Sigmund Freudian method of go back before the moment happened, you can repair the damage. I agree with that to an extent. I do think there's cause and effect. But the specifics, you will have no idea, but you'll always remember how you were made to feel. And that's what I need to get to. So let's say the kid comes home and says, "Mummy, look at my drawing." Mummy might go, "Wow, this is amazing. I'm going to put it on the fridge where everyone can see." Now, weirdly, it's not destructive, but it's not ideal. because the reason is that you have acknowledged the achievement before you've acknowledged the person. So you've said, wow, this is amazing. I'm going to put this on the fridge where everyone can see. I'm proud of you. In a perfect world, which I know we don't live in, and it's messy, and there's kids, and there's chaos, and there's traffic, and there's weather, ideally, if the kid comes home, mummy, look at my drawing. Hang on a second. Come give me a big cuddle. Oh, I'm so proud of you. Now, what do we have here? Did you do this? Wow, this is amazing. I'm going to put it on the fridge where everyone can see. Because you acknowledge the person, you've told me you love them regardless of what they've done. Now, again, I am stereotyping massively here, but I can only talk to my lived experience. Typically, I coach men over 40, 45 years of age. So most people, the dad was away, so they're physically not there as much, and they're emotionally not there as much. So when dad does come home and he's worked a long day and went, Daddy, look at me, what?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, fine. Okay, yeah, great, well done. Oh. And typically as children, we crave the love of the parent that we didn't get it from as much. And typically you get more love from the mother. So then they start to seek behaviours of what dad does to try and get his love. So if dad is standoffish, dad is stoic, dad doesn't talk about how he feels, dad is emotionally suppressed, I need to act like dad in order to bring him closer to me. So therefore, men now just shut down and don't want to do that. So then what they have to do is achieve to try keep impressing mummy. So this horrible cycle that a lot of these high achieving men in particular, and some of the women I've coached as well, by the way, is that they're trying to prove something. They want that ta-da moment, the next goal, the next financial hit that they get, the next house, the next car, the next whatever. So they just keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing because they don't feel good enough.
Let's talk about the validation, the aha, because again, I can really relate to that. And I know, you're talking, I have a son, his dad doesn't live here, and I'm so conscious of this. I'm doing so much work around it all the time. But yeah, the patterns, the ingrained patterns, are still there. And I do actually say things like, I am proud of you rather than what it is. But my son's need for validation is so great. And I can relate to that too in everything I do. I've definitely got way better at it. I used to be incredibly externally validated. So I needed to know from the boss or whoever it was that I was doing a good job. And since running my own business for the last 10 years, I've really learned that you got to find that. You got to find that validation from within. And you just keep searching and searching outside of yourself. What are we searching for? Are we searching for well done? Is that what it is? Is it once I get the car, that will feel like the well done? What is it that we're searching for?
Acknowledgement, weirdly. And I'm going to go very quickly, slightly off piste here. When I worked in hospitality, I was in the industry for 14 years. Most places you go, if I went to the barber, I know my order. If I sit down, there's 3 men ahead of me, they know who's next. The person that was in after them know who's next, and so on. When I go into a post office, there's a queue. In a bar, free for all. People aren't waiting to be served. They're waiting to be acknowledged. Because it's infuriating. If you're just stood there and you don't know when your turn is, right? So I always just say to people, with you in 2 seconds, mate. This goes back to a deep-rooted childhood need. I don't know the exact statistics, so I'm not going to misquote, but what I will say is I have read a very in-depth paper that was done at the Harvard University of around thousands of different children, and the research showed that the mental health statistics in children that were beaten and abused generally were actually stronger than those that were completely neglected.
Right. Because it's attention.
It's attention. And what a lot of children do, especially young boys who are quite boisterous and destructive, trying to get daddy's approval and daddy's attention, I've done good behaviour and he's gone, so what? So I'm just going to break something in the house just to get his attention.
Yeah.
What did you do that for? And it might be a whack. Not necessarily a punch, might be a hit with a slipper, whatever, right? But it might just be an insult. At least he's acknowledged that I exist now. So I think it's mainly that we want to be seen. We want to be heard. Yeah.
Heard.
And
Seen,
this is why
heard,
social media exists.
and ideally understood.
Correct. That's exactly it.
But still, in seeking, and we'll come back to the internal conversation in a second, but this is important. This is important because we need to understand why we're talking to ourselves the way we are because of what we're seeking, right? Is that social media seems like a place where you can get that validation. But oh no, because we then place emphasis on likes and comments. That's not validation, but do we feel seen? When we get a certain amount of likes or comments, does that satisfy a need inside us?
You'll love this one. I was coaching a girl who's an influencer and a model. One of the most beautiful people you'll ever see. And she's got 200,000 followers. And she was posting pictures on a night out, getting quite high likes. Then it started becoming a bit more provocative. And it was in bikinis. And then it was lingerie. And then it was just a G-string with a back to the picture so you couldn't see everything, but you could kind of see everything. What she was doing was looking at, right, that picture there in French knickers, for example, and no bra, got thousands of likes. But this one, when I was on a night out, only got 900 likes. So I need to keep doing that. Then she did a picture last Mother's Day with her mum. And it was a beautiful picture. The most awesome caption saying how much her mother, inspired her to be the woman that she is today. And this was her highest performing post by metrics. So then, rather than saying, what a beautiful moment with my mother, this now means my body must be terrible then.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And it just hurt me. Like, I've just got so much compassion and empathy for people. And I think it's because of the challenges that I faced in my childhood with school and all this other stuff. I think it's a trait of people with ADHD and dyspraxia that you do become more empathetic and compassionate. And I just felt so bad for her because on the surface, she's a millionaire, basically. She's killing it, in great shape, looks amazing, and she's so miserable and she's so down on herself. Long story short, over time, we started to work on this and it did start to improve where now she doesn't do any pictures in lingerie. I said to her, look, is 2,000 likes enough? Is 3,000 likes enough? Is 300,000 likes enough? It will never be enough. So we needed to work out a better, more helpful structure. I said, what if none of your posts ever got any likes? You just wouldn't stop. You wouldn't carry on posting, would you? You'd just stop. So, but again, going back to the way she communicates to herself, what did it mean? It didn't mean what a lovely picture with mum. It meant I'm fat, I'm ugly, and no one likes me because I got less.
Yeah.
That's the message that she was telling herself.
And it's easily done because of this intrinsic need to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel understood, that we attach a lack of something with being down on ourselves, with negative self-talk. And I want to talk about something you mentioned when we were talking previously in terms of this inner dialogue that people don't share because they attach so much shame to it. So not only do we have this golem in our head, but also we don't like talking about that because we feel shame about it too. What's that all about?
Shame and guilt play a very interesting role in our lives, and they both come from judgment of oneself. So guilt is I did something bad, so therefore I feel guilty. Shame is I am bad. I am that thing. So I'll often hear people say, I don't like him, he's an arsehole. I don't like her, she's aggressive. All the time? In every area of their life? I doubt it. Even Vladimir Putin has horses and they love him. Right? So not all the time. Now, I know it's a big stretch.
There's someone that loves someone in the world. Everyone for someone.
And horses are intuitive and very, very clever. So he's obviously nice to them. So no one's all of everything always. And if I can go, I'm obviously being playful here.
Yeah.
But it meaning that if we can go to that nth degree with someone as horrible as that, we can probably be a bit kinder to ourselves. So rather than saying, I'm just that, we have to detach ourselves from the behavior. So some men will shamefully masturbate and then they'll tell me they want to have a better sex life, but they're anxious about their physical body. So they still want to have the release of the pleasure, but then they feel guilt afterwards and go, why did I do that? Then the guilt turns to shame. Oh, I'm such an idiot. And then that will lead them to junk food. It will lead them to more dopamine hits to try fill the need. So they don't actually get what they want. And then we catastrophize. You used that word earlier, and it's a brilliant word, and it's very, very common. That I always say to people, let's say you're on a weight loss journey, and then you had a pizza. Do you need to have the cheesecake and then the crisps and then the chocolate for the next weekend? No. If you burst a tyre, you wouldn't get out and pop the other three. That'd be ludicrous. Why would you do that?
True.
Exactly. You know, if someone smashed one of your windows, you wouldn't go, oh, right, well, that's it. I'm just going to break every other one in the house now. It'd be ludicrous. But we do it with our thoughts and we do it with our behaviours. So what tends to happen is we have a thought, then we attach a label to the thought. That then becomes our belief system of how we need to be and what we need to do. That then will determine what actions we do or don't take. And that will obviously yield your results. But I often say to people, you are not your thoughts. We have around 2,000 thoughts an hour, and about 80% of them are quite negative because we're always designed to survive. When you go back to the hunter-gatherer kind of era, if your head wasn't on a swivel, you're getting eaten alive, and so is your family. So you had to be risk averse. And we're always trying to avoid pain. We're not always trying to seek pleasure. But then we start saying things like, oh, I'm not going to take action today, Adam, because you know, if I go to the gym, I'm going to make an idiot of myself. I'll just stay here because, you know, right now I'm in my comfort zone. I'm like, comfort? I'm like, well, yeah, comfort. Is this comfortable being overweight? Well, no, right. So it's familiar. Oh, yeah, it's familiar zone. It's not comfort zone. There's nothing comfortable about being miserable. But because it's so familiar to so many people, they don't know any different. They don't know the pain of, again, I'm not a personal trainer, but let's imagine we go with that example because it's easy. We've all been there, right? People are attaching more pain to getting up and exercising and drinking water and eating healthily than they are about clothes not fitting, not feeling comfortable being naked in front of the partner, and being out of breath when they're playing with the children. So the attachment right now is that if I make a positive change, this is actually going to be more negative. That's where we have to interrupt the pattern.
Yeah.
So people might say, oh, but I always do this with my kid. Okay, that's fine, but how's it working out for you right now? Yeah, he's not talking to me. Okay, so we need to do a different approach with a more helpful strategy to get you closer towards what you want. Should we give it a go? Yeah, great. What's step one? Oh, maybe I could do, bang, straight away they've gone into create a stage. It's a much better frame of mind to be in.
It is. However, those ingrained, well-trodden paths in our mind meadow, really difficult to rewire, right? And it's taken me a very long time to rewire some very ingrained beliefs, which mean that I am talking much more kindly to myself. And radical self-compassion is like one thing that we can really apply here. But I guess when I'm now thinking about solutions here, right? Is it's definitely a journey, not a destination, right? Because our mind will always try and go back to what it primitively knows to do. But in your experience working with your clients and yourself on your own journey, what can we do? How can we retread those paths in the meadow? How can we create new neural pathways that mean that we can talk more positively to ourselves?
I think the quality of your life will be determined by how quickly you can break free from the old pattern. So, like I said earlier, for me, it could be 3, 4 days of pure misery and piling in on myself and drinking more and eating more rubbish and not exercising and then calling myself an idiot again and getting stuck in this horrible shame cycle. Now it can last as little as 30 seconds, but that's taken years of work. So if you are Joe Blogs listening to this now and you are becoming more consciously aware, just as you and I are discussing this, the simplest question that you can ask yourself, which has been an absolute game changer for me, is what's a more helpful thought?
Like that.
It's not false positivity rah-rah. And you can literally apply this to anything. And I mean anything. And because when you go on podcasts and the clips come out, people try and make you sound stupid, right? So you're saying that if my mum died, then I can bring in a more helpful thought. Yeah, because it's if you say, "Oh, my life's over and I'm a complete loser," no, more helpful is this is awful and I need to deal with this as best I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
That's just more helpful, right?
So
So yeah,
let's take a pause on that, because that's really so simple but so effective, that we can actually break a pattern from spiraling, from going into catastrophe and all of those, anxiety based outcomes that we think, in by checking in and saying, what would be a more helpful thought here? What would be more helpful to think here? A bit of self-coaching and breaking and stopping and reflecting is very, very simple, because actually, again, it grounds, doesn't it? Because anxiety-based thinking is up here. It's not grounded in any sort of logic or reasoning. And so this simple question just grounds you immediately, right?
yeah, it cuts through all the noise. I remember when I first heard it, I rang my coach because I've got a coach and he's got a coach, and somewhere in the heavens above, there's this almighty coach. But yeah, it's probably Tony Robbins or someone like that.
Yeah.
I said to her, I rang him, and we this is I don't know, 3-4 years ago. We just started doing men's retreats, and we had 10 people signed up. It was our first one. It was all with existing clients. We charged less than we wanted to, just to fill the thing and see if we wanted to enjoy it, and da da da. So we didn't set up any of the terms and conditions, rather naively in hindsight now. But a month before, 2 people dropped out. Then another week went by, then someone else dropped out. And then the day before, someone else dropped out. So now we're down to 6. And I rang him and I was like, "Oh, I'm so annoyed." He's like, "Why? What's going on?" I said, "We've only got 6 people on our retreat now." And he goes, "Okay, what's a more helpful thought?" I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I'm annoyed." He goes, "I'm not saying you're not annoyed, but what's more helpful? What's a more helpful way of framing this?" I was like, "Oh, I don't want to deny how I'm feeling." He goes, "I'm not asking you to. Just what's more helpful?" I said, "We've got 6 people on our first retreat."
It's really good.
There you go. So the same sentence said in a different way. "Oh, we've only got 6. We've got 6 on our first retreat. Amazing." He goes, "Great. What's another helpful thought?" They'll probably get more time with us now, so they'll find it actually more valuable, you could argue. Great. What's another more helpful thought? The testimonials will be stronger. What's another more helpful thought? The bond between the group will probably be tighter. There you go. So within 5 minutes, I've gone from being really angry to being quite regulated and almost neutral about it, to then going, this is actually pretty good that we've only got 6 people.
Yeah.
Maybe we want to do this going forward. I don't know. And the weekend was amazing. Everyone had a great time. And the comments were, we got so much time with, the business owners, and we got this and we got that. And they were
There you
buzzing.
go.
So they were the perception of the attendees was actually increased, and we thought it'd be decreased. But in actual fact, they were buzzing. So from that moment, and I know people talk about life-changing things, I genuinely think this was, because I've used it now with hundreds of people, and they all respond in the same way, of eventually going, "Oh my God, you're right." It's not dancing outside going, there's no weeds, and my
No.
life's amazing.
It's not the toxic positivity, right? It's not ignoring the bad stuff. It's not sweeping it under the carpet. It's not minimizing. You're all right. You're okay. Everything's all right, which you might say to a child you're trying to get to school who's refusing to go to school. Very big thing for me at the moment. So I'm learning that type of approach does not help. It doesn't help anyone. You're okay. You're all right.
Yeah. Let them feel.
Yeah.
We're always getting corrected because we've been told this lie that emotional intelligence means you have to be happy and positive all the time. No, if the child's let's say, again, for people listening with children, if you pick them up from sport, let's say they've just played football, don't talk to them about football unless they bring it up. Don't even ask, "How did you find that?" or go, "That was really good, wasn't it?" Because you don't know how they feel about it yet. So if they let's say they've scored 2 goals and they go, "I was really rubbish today," Most people fix it and go, no, you weren't, darling. You were amazing. Don't say that. Ask more questions. And this is the hardest thing we can do as people, by the way, when our little darlings are, not in a good state. Terrible. What makes you say that? It's what makes you say that, or how have you come to that conclusion?
Yeah.
They're like the best questions ever, because most
Yeah.
people go, why'd you say that? And it makes them sound like they've got a problem. So what makes you say that? Well, Johnny scored 3 goals and I only scored 2. Okay, well, would you say 2 is still quite good? Yeah, I guess so. Then just leave them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll come back to you again, because if a kid's crying and you see it in the supermarket, the kid's screaming and having an absolute meltdown, the best parenting reactions I've seen in supermarkets is when they do nothing.
Yeah. I got very well versed at doing that.
Yeah, just let them. Just let them react in that way. It's okay, because they're going to eventually snap out of it. But a lot of people can't disassociate their own embarrassment or
Or
the fear,
anxiety
correct, or fear
around
of
noise.
judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it could be noise, sensory. It could be that, oh my God, all these people around me are going to think I'm a terrible parent
Shame.
now. Shame and guilt again. What does this mean? There's a crying child on the floor. Does that mean I'm a terrible parent? People are going to think I'm abusive. People are going to think I'm an idiot. People are going to think I'm a bad mother or father. Pause. The amount of problems that could be solved by just allowing yourself to breathe for 5 seconds, not this awe-inspiring meditation technique, just the simple, even genuinely me just doing that, I honestly feel a bit more relaxed.
Me too. Me too. Yeah. Well,
It's amazing.
I stopped, as we spoke about, I stopped drinking. And in the early days, I did have the sort of, the pangs and things like that, and that would sort of lead to sort of anxious feelings and, feeling like I need to have a drink. And I got so good at doing that, just taking a real deep lungful of air. And it really does help.
Yeah, it's amazing. When was the last time people nasal breathe properly? It's like when I work with someone, I got someone off smoking within one session, not through some fancy hypnosis. I said, what do you feel like smoking's providing you with? And he said, honestly, it just helps me de-stress. I'm not bothered by the smell. I could leave nicotine alone. It just means I can get outside. I said, oh, would you say it's anything to do with going? And he's like, you are joking. I was like, no. I was like, because I've smoked for 5 years. I was like, well, maybe go outside today and try a few deep. And honestly, I know everyone's different, but for this particular
Yes.
person, it worked because it was the association. So maybe it's just breathing in and out fresh air. Perhaps that's what it was. Like, oh my God. And he didn't even think about it because he wasn't consciously aware of what he was doing. So a lot of the work that I do, and even just by this conversation that you and I are having now, people listening might go, now I'm going to be more aware of what I say. Because a lot of my clients go, oh, I feel like I've got a little Adam on my shoulder following me around, correcting me on my language. So I don't ever correct, I challenge. Is that true?
Right.
Well,
Yes.
no, I'm not a fat loser. Right. What's a more helpful thought?
Yeah.
I need to lose £5. Great. Doesn't mean you're a fat loser. It means you want to lose £5. We can do that. So what would you like to do today to get closer to losing £5? I want to get outside for a walk and I'm going to drink a bit more water. Fantastic. That's it. Not go sign up to High Rocks and shame yourself that you're not fit enough, right? Or do something like that and look in the mirror and go, oh God, 10 years ago I was in better shape. Yeah, well, that was 10 years ago. You probably were in better shape
Yeah.
for good reason. So, yeah, I think if we just take a day off from kicking the crap out of ourselves, it's incredible what can happen.
I really like what you're saying there. So just thinking of strategies for people listening. So it's stopping, pausing, breathing, which is the simplest thing you can do. It's asking yourself what would be a more helpful thought. It's asking yourself, how true is this? And for me also, and this may not work for other people, but for me, when I was working through this, because I was really doing a lot of work on this, it was, what do you need? Because again, it's that kind of unmet need childhood thing that would kind of the behavior, whatever the behavior is, and the negative self-talk is probably due to some kind of unmet need that we can give ourselves as an adult.
Yeah,
We're running the show. The kind of the child inside us doesn't have to run the show.
yeah. So when you're
So
talking to, let's say, just to extend to that, because that's a fantastic question. I love that question if someone's coming to me with a challenge, so if it's my partner or my mum or a friend, if it's my partner, for example, it's like a 3-question framework. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to be left alone? Or do you want me to give you a hug? Because that's all we really want.
Yeah.
Or adding the 4th, do you need anything from me? Or what do you need from me?
Yeah.
I'm all right. I just wanted to tell you. Great.
Yeah.
Because most women will come home, they'll tell the husband the challenge, and the man goes, right, here's what we need to do. Let's get a solution to this problem. That's not what you want. You just
No.
want to be listened to. Again, you want to be heard and seen. Another extension of the question that you asked yourself there was, what's healthiest for me right now? Because ironically, sometimes the healthiest thing is not to go to the gym.
Right.
Sometimes the healthiest thing is to get a takeaway and watch a film with your partner, because you might have been working away for 3 weeks and you haven't done date night in forever and you can't get a babysitter and the kids have just gone down and you go, should we just get a takeaway and watch our favourite film? Yeah, let's do that. So I'm not advocating we do it every night, of course,
No.
but occasionally, and don't kid yourself either, because again, we're in the world of people making things sound stupid now, unfortunately. I'm not suggesting as a high performance coach you should eat takeaways and drink whatever. But what I am saying is really listen to your body and ask yourself honestly, not the dopamine hit healthy, what's genuinely the healthiest thing that I can do for me today? Is it go outside for 20 minutes? Is it read my favourite book? Is it call my mum? Is it prep my breakfasts? Is it pick my kids up from school? I don't care, but just pick something.
Yeah. 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 So, yeah, what do you need right now for like that sort of bit of self-compassion, but also what's the healthiest thing that's going to help me right now? Developing that kind, compassionate inner dialogue with myself was a huge game changer. And I think, this is just a protector. This is just our internal protector trying to protect us from perceived harm in an environment that is outdated and not existing anymore, although it is actually still kind of there because there are real threats in our world. However, we haven't had an upgrade. And so it's a process of developing that kind compassion, but also practical self-talk. And if you need help, you come to someone like yourself, of course, or myself, because I'm a coach, but I help people in different ways.
That's it. I always think that we don't have it. We don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers, and I never will do, and I don't want to. I always want to keep growing. And I think part of the suffering we have as people is that we attach this finite end to things. And the guilt can come from, I've done all this good work on myself, and then I've had the pizza. I've had all this good work on myself, and I shouted at my kid. Yeah, do you know why? Because you're a human being.
Yeah.
And you're a human being. Be with it, not a human doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Adam, I obviously could talk about this for days. However, I really have appreciated you sharing this because I always like practical. And I think what you've discussed there really can give some golden nuggets to anyone listening to start to have these better conversations with themselves and talk to themselves more positive. And as with all of my guests, I end the conversation by asking one final question, which is, what words have changed your life?
A question that I got asked again by my coach. He's a very wise man. I'm not going to claim it as my own. Have you had enough pain yet? That just, because I kept coming to him with the same problem over and over and over and over. And he said, look, it doesn't make any difference to me what you do, because I love you and we get on great. But when this call ends today, I'm going to carry on with my day. Have you had enough pain yet? And I just sat with it. And honestly, I nearly started to cry because I was like, oh my God. So what do you mean? It's like, until you've had enough pain, you won't change. And everyone's got a different pain threshold. Some people, it's trying on a pair of jeans and they don't fit, so they go to the gym. I know one guy who got so overweight, he literally went blind. He developed diabetes, and the diabetes made him go blind, and then sadly he's now passed at the age of 52. He had to die because he didn't want to change. So exactly, we don't have to get to that stage. So if you're going through a challenge right now, whether you are drinking too much, whether you are going through a tricky time in your marriage, or you're in that job that you hate, have you had enough pain yet? And ask yourself honestly, but compassionately and kindly, not judgmentally. And then just start taking micro steps to change. That's it.
Really like that. Haven't had that in that context before, but it's such a good question because the answer's going to be yes, of course. Of course I blimmin' have. You know, why would I want more?
That's it. And then unfortunately some people do, because they feel like they're not deserving of the outcome.
I know. Yeah.
So they'll keep going. But please, if you are listening and you are struggling and you don't believe in you, I don't even know you. And believe in my belief in you if you want. I don't care. Please make one step forward today. That is it. It's all you need.
Amazing. I'm inspired. I'm buzzing. And I really appreciate the conversation. Thanks so much, Adam.
Thanks for having me, Helen.